Welcome back to the ARCSOA Radio Hour. We are now going to be, me and Graham are going to be talking about probably the biggest issue in ARCSOA as of post-round 2, issue, and that is what the heck is going on with the round of Savannah. And, this is a long and convoluted story, so please bear with us. Alright, so essentially what happened was ARCSOA held a meeting the Tuesday after because F1 fan protested the finish. Nice surprise, the F1 fan, he finished second, but he is a big stickler for driver safety. Yes, anyway, F1, at that point, on that meeting on the Tuesday after the race, ARCSOA approved the race to go through the, approved it to be for points. However, F1 fan really wasn't happy about that. No, he wasn't. So instead, what he did was he went up to the American Motorsports Council, which has reign over all motor racing that takes place primarily in North America and primarily in the United States. So so worldwide leagues don't apply to it, and since we're not a worldwide league anymore, and we were always primarily in the United States, ARCSOA falls under that category. Yes, he went up there with a repeal to the decision. What the Motorsports Council says is that there will be a joint meeting of the minds in all IndyCar, ARCSOA, and everybody that falls into the category of the American Motorsports Council. They will have a meeting coming up in, I think, May. Of course, right now it is in February, so there is a long, I'm sorry, not in May, in June, in June 5th, which will essentially, the heads of each league will meet up with, everybody's league owner and decide whether if it is legal to do what ARCSOA did and if it is legal to count that race. Well, the International Motorsports Council is probably one of the toughest organizations to read when it comes to areas. And when F1 fan put up this proposal, then that means the drivers that at least a good bit of the drivers in ARCSOA are against counting that race. However, we're not sure how many, but what that has done is it has created, the Motorsports Council requires then a drivers' union in a league that has an issue. So there's now an ARCSOA drivers' union that F1 fan is in charge of, I guess, and all the drivers now are mandated to have meetings and such and see if if the meetings and the big minds in ARCSOA have the right to do things. And giving drivers power isn't exactly a bad idea, but sometimes we saw it with the IndyCar series a couple of years ago. Giving them too much can boil overboard, and we saw almost a complete revolution of IndyCar back in about 2 years ago for IndyCar Season 5, about the same time ARCSOA Season 5 was going on. But, so essentially, now drivers are mandated to put that opinion on these races. Now, the sad part is you've got the track of Savannah, Georgia, and you got the Savannah Raceway, who's in the middle of this. They have no idea what's going to happen. What we do know is if the Motorsports Council turns down or approves F1 fans' request to get ARCSOA to not count that race, Savannah will still get a postponed date later in the season where half the original race distance, which was 128 laps, I believe. Yeah, 128 laps was the round of Georgia. Alright, so 128 laps, that would go down to 64 laps. So the race would be 64 laps, only 32 miles, so that just shows you the length of this race. And the drivers would have to race on that with all how do I put this into words? All things up before the race where water was seeping through the track would need to be rerun. The problem was the entire race was run with water on track. So what has happened is you get water on the track, so that means the whole race would be null and void. I mean, they just wouldn't call the race at like lap 20 like they did with IndyCar that one time at New Hampshire, and then restart it on another date from lap 20. Since they don't have that, it's going to be a halfway distance, but all other sessions before that would be up to the last dry session. The problem was warm-up. There'd be no warm-up session if this would have happened. There'd be no warm-up. And qualifying was already picked on a random draw since it was rained out. So essentially what you're going to be getting, and practice was the last advisable session to be counted. So essentially you'd be going in to this temporary round of Savannah, which would probably be in between the round of Ohio and whatever's after the round of Ohio. I need to get my paper out, which would be the round of Canada in Motorsport. And what would happen was the series would be essentially, everybody would be going in blind, because you would have no qualifying. You'd have no qualifying. It'd be based on a random draw. Warm-up would be null and void. So you'd be going in blind with brand new cars. So that could be a very interesting race if they do disapprove of this race. However, we have no idea what is going on with that. But what we can say is ARCSOA doesn't like F1 fan doing this. They are not happy about this. No, they're not. And ARCSOA, and if I may add on to this point, ARCSOA has put up that they are this was a statement by the ARCSOA minds saying, we would, and I quote, we would like to cooperate with this new found drivers union as a cooperational boundaries. So therefore, end quote. So therefore, they want whatever ARCSOA to say, they want to persuade the drivers into agreeing with it after this whole meeting. F1 fan, the leader of the drivers union, says, and I quote, I will agree with them if they are right. If they are wrong, then I will disagree with them, and we will take the appropriate actions against them. So essentially, ARCSOA wants stuff, drivers want stuff, they're in a big war now. It is not sure which drivers want the race to be counted. For God's sakes, I bet Fuel's really wanting it to be counted. I know the drivers had finished, but the drivers that didn't finish, I think, are like, wait a minute, we got taken out because of a wet track. And they disqualified Mr. the Muppet Fan. ARCSOA officials disqualified Mr. the Muppet Fan for causing more than enough crashes, by missing the pit lane about 5 times. But he said something in a post-race press conference saying, how can I get onto pit road when there's water seeping through it at race speed? And essentially, it puts a big danger into what they're doing, and I'm wondering if they're gonna... But then other drivers out there have been saying, like Fuel 83 saying, why was the race even started then if there was that issue, is what I'm thinking Fuel's saying. He wants the race to be counted because the race was started. And he really is... he's really pushing for that race to be counted as such and the order to be taken. And as you know, if you don't finish the race, you don't get points. So this could have huge effects on championship outcomes if this race is either taken or not taken. As a championship race, it will have huge effects on that, Graham. You're exactly right there, and that's the thing. This could decide a championship. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me if this decision that the Motorsports Council makes is does have huge bindings on the championship or decides it. So we're not allowed to take. I'm not allowed to take sides on it because I'm kind of the host of this. But you are, Graham. Graham, what do you think? I think right now the Motorsports Council, looking at the history, is not going to approve this race, thinking that it was a danger on track and it was a track safety issue. And let me also just say something quick. There's been a lot of criticism brought around the Savannah Speedway and the condition of the pavement and whatnot. This has nothing to do with that. I've seen some of the best racetracks. Fontana did it. Fontana did it in season 2, where the race had to be stopped. Afterward, where the race was stopped. It was definitely having weepers through because there was a night IndyCar race at night afterwards when the rainstorm had passed through, and they had weeper problems with the Fontana circuit. So it's not necessarily just Savannah's fault here, but what a difficult situation we're in right now, and we're going into Cape America knowing, which is of course round 3, not knowing who's the point leader. Essentially, as of right now, ARCSOA is going off of round 1 and kind of null and voiding Savannah for right now. It might get approved, might not, depending on the Motorsports Council's ruling. But right now, the points are as of Homestead, where we're going to Cape America with JG24JN87 leading the points. So after all this kind of issues, it just brings up controversy until June 3rd or 5th or whenever it is, which will probably be around Bodecker Hill. So, which will probably be around the Bodecker Hills time, which is, of course, around Missouri, which we don't know whether or not what's the championship is going to be up till round 7 or 8. We might not know. Now, the Motorsport Council does have the appropriate measures that they can call an early meeting. However, Graham, you might bring in some insight on this because I have no idea what I'm talking about. Yes, the Motorsport Council can also. There's the meeting in June that is when it is expected that the decision is going to be made. However, right now they can call an early meeting, which I don't think it'll happen, but it could. That they could call an early meeting of the minds of all different types of leagues, and they're the ones that would decide whether if the race was fair or not. If that happens, I don't think it will, but if it does, it could end a lot of confusion, because, like I said, we could be in confusion till, like you said, we could be in confusion till Bodecker Hill. Bodecker Hill could be probably the first possible race where we know what's going on, because the motorsport meeting takes place the day before the Bodecker Hill race. Alright, we'll be back after this commercial break, where we go on to driver interviews about the Cape America circuit. Back after the break.